I'm here with Greg Clark at the Central Lobby of the House of Commons. Greg is the Member of Parliament for Tunbridge Wells, part of the new intake of Conservative MPs, and he's already made his mark with his proposal on garden grabbing. Greg, what is the problem of garden grabbing, and how widespread a problem is it?
Well, the problem, Douglas, is that gardens, unbelievably, are considered to be brownfield sites for planning purposes, just the same as an old gasworks or a disused railway siding. Because brownfield sites are the number one target for development in government guidance, then any developer who wants to plough up a garden, usually by demolishing the house that's next to the garden and building a block of flats covering a whole footprint, they can usually do so, because it's almost impossible for local authorities to refuse planning permission for that. And in terms of being widespread, it's going on across the country. 1 in every 6 homes across the country now built on an old garden.
1 in every 6?
1 in every 6. In the southeast, it's 1 in every 4. And in certain constituencies, like mine, it's 45%. And in some places, in Buckinghamshire, South Bucks, for example, in 2004, every new dwelling was built on a garden.
Good heavens. Good heavens. So how's your proposal going to address this problem?
It's very simple. I think it's a mistake that gardens were classed as brownfield sites. I don't think that was intended when the definition was formulated. So all we need to do is to change it, to make it clear that gardens are not brownfield sites. And by doing that, that would return to local councils power to decide these things on the merits. Because after all, it's local people, local councils, who know these areas best, and they can decide whether a garden's worth keeping or whether it's worth developing.
This seems very, very sort of sensible and common sense. How come you thought of it?
Well, it's like a number of things that, as an MP, that get brought to your attention as a constituency MP. It's a big problem in Tunbridge Wells. There are areas of my constituency that have been family homes for up to a century. Leafy sort of places with substantial gardens that actually contribute very much to the character of the neighbourhood. And what people are finding, to their utter shock, is that these prized areas are being razed to the ground and replaced by blocks of flats. And the reason is because their gardens are classed as brownfield sites, and so it's difficult to refuse planning permission. So what started as a constituency issue, I raised through a 10-minute rule bill in the House of Commons, and I was amazed at the response from right across the country, as far as Sunderland in the north, in the valleys of South Wales, all saying the same thing. Exactly the same is happening in our part of the world. It's time someone does something about it.
So as a diligent constituency MP, you're able to actually create a national debate on something as important?
Yeah, I think it just shows actually kind of one of the virtues of democracy, having local representatives. We found that what's happening in Tunbridge Wells is happening elsewhere, and a national campaign is coming from it.
On a slightly broader problem to do with local democracy and local government, I gather that something like 90% of all planning decisions are now made by unelected officials rather than elected councillors. And big decisions on things like mobile phone masts, wind farms, these aren't made by councillors, and quite often you'll find the councillors actually gagged and prevented from talking about them. Is this right? Do you think more needs to be done to make sure that there's local accountability?
I do think more needs to be done. I think it's really corrosive for democracy that people elect local councils who they especially expect to be able to debate the local environment, the attractiveness of the local environment and the facilities there, and they find, to their shock, that they're not allowed to take a view on these things. And so they have to follow national government guidance issued from Whitehall, and they have no choice but to implement it. They're the ciphers of national government. That is, people, when they confront that, are so disillusioned with democracy. It's not a surprise that turnout in local elections is as low as it is.